Hello friends, welcome to Indian Temples YouTube channel. Today we are speaking with a very special person, very special temple explorer. We have with us Priyanka Dalal.
Hi.
So Priyanka is actually my very old friend from early days of Twitter. We were the ones who started using Twitter when it arrived in India. So if you see Twitter as a very cool thing right now, we are the ones who made it cool.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's true.
So Priyanka is also a YouTuber. She has a channel dedicated to spirituality. I will be sharing the link of the channel in description below. She is a solo traveler. She is a bicycle traveler. She prefers to visit different places using her bicycle. She has her journey has been covered by many English, Hindi, as well as Gujarati publications. There are many articles written about her, and she is also in a process of writing a book about her experiences about her journey.
Yeah, I hope it completes.
So, welcome Priyanka to Indian Temples YouTube channel.
Thank you, Dinesh. Really great speaking to you.
So Priyanka, I have been watching your channel for quite some time. I'm a regular visitor of your channel, of your YouTube channel,
Thank
and
you.
I noticed that you are very much interested in spirituality behind those temples, behind the Indian temples. So how did this interest develop? The interest in spirituality.
So, I had been speaking to you earlier also. The thing is, in my very early days, like post teenage, when I was out of my teenage, I was this brat kind of character, usual urban Mumbai person. I stay in South. I used to stay in South Bombay, so that's sobo brat as they call them. And I was like, I had seen the traditional religion and stuff in the house and around me, and I was like, this is, there are too many loopholes. There's too much contradiction, and so I rejected everything, and I used to fight with my elders on religious stuff, and I'm like, this doesn't make sense and all that stuff. And going to temples was no major interest. I didn't go. I used to avoid it, especially because if you go, especially in Jain temples, I'm a Jain, so they will ask you to wear that dupatta on the head because they don't want you to go uncovered head and all. It is too troublesome. I'm wearing jeans and t-shirt. How do I do all this stuff? So that was my approach. What changed was when I found Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev, who has now become very, very famous. But this was way back in 2005. I was still in degree college, and I went. He was not that well known. Through some friend, he said that I really went. I really like this person's programs a lot. If you want, you can go for it. And that's how I found Sadhguru, and I attended one of his first programs. And I was, I was really thrilled with it. It was something really, it touched me a lot, like it really moved me, I would say. And then I did the other program which also happened under some teacher, Isha teacher. And then they in that program they showed this Dhyanalingam temple which is there in the Isha Yoga Center. And I said something clicked in me, and I said I have to go here. So I went there, and then for the next 2 years or so, I kept going there. Any random chance I get, I go. Even before my final degree exam, I had to study and give my final exam, and I didn't feel like studying in Mumbai. And then I was like, okay, let me go to the ashram. I'll study there, and I'll do some volunteering, and that kind of appealed to me more. So I went there, and I actually my pre-final exam studying I did there. At the same time, I was volunteering. And I always volunteered in the temple as much as possible because I love that temple, the Yanlingam temple. I just love it. And it's very different from the usual temples because, first of all, and at that time, the ashram was very small. Like right now, Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev has become so famous. Even if you go to the Yanlingam temple, there is a lot of people coming all the time. But that time, it was empty almost all through the day. Very few people will come. So it is so silent. Anyway, now also, if you go, they maintain so silent because they have constant volunteers in place to keep it silent and all. So if you enter, even the footfall noise you are able to hear. Even on it's a shivling is there. Dhyanalingam is like a meditation temple, but there is a shivling in it. So that water is dropping from top. So even one drop of water drops on it, you can hear it like tap, tap. That much silent it is. So it's lovely, and it has these little alcoves, like those Buddhist meditation style, like it has those little cubicles where you can go in and sit and all. So I spent time there, a lot of time there. I volunteered there a lot, and that's how my temple love for temple started, because Yanlingam just became like, I absolutely love that place. And then I wasn't staying in the ashram afterwards, and I was outside, and yet that pull for Dhyanlingam is there. And then if I'm outside, I go to any temple and I just sit over there. The way I sit in Dhyanlingam, I will sit over there. And I just after that, I just love temples. And I think one thing was that Sadhguru has been explaining to us in those days, because I sat in a lot of his satsangs, and he explained so much that how you should use a temple. Because earlier I didn't know what the temple was for. People made us so nervous when we have to visit the temple. They put so many rules on you. And one of the biggest thing that Sadhguru highlights, and I totally agree with, is when people are going to temple, you don't see that joy and excitement in their face. They are going as some compulsory ritual they have to do, like they are some big sinners and they have to wash their sins, or some weird thing they carry on the head and go in the temple. That's not it. The way I visit Dhyanlingam, the way Sadhguru asks us to visit is we have to go there, we just have to sit there for 15-20 minutes and you meditate if you know to meditate, or you just sit and absorb the place. Anyway, see, the way it is, if we are thinking that God is sitting over there, why should we carry any rubbish in our mind? We just go, we sit, let that presence of God do what it's supposed to do, and we come out. That's all. That's the plan of action. So that I love doing. And after I understood that, and I also internalized it, and I absorbed and I agreed about it, then that's how I visit any temple I go to, and I just sit there. And I love visiting temples. Over time, I have developed a respect for whatever rituals and all the people have. So if I go to Jain temple, I try and cover my head. Even if it's just a hoodie, I'll put the hoodie like this. Or I make it a point, if I'm going, I'll carry a dupatta with me, because I'm like, I don't want to unnecessarily antagonize those people. And they have some thinking, so let me not, get into all that stuff. Let me just simply follow the rules and not think too much. And once I go to the temple, the way I want to experience it, I experience it. Like, I don't go like just behind someone and follow some rituals that make no sense to me. I don't mutter some scriptures that I don't know any meaning about. I just sit. If I want, I will meditate. If I want, I will do some japa also. I may read some of the, in the temple, a lot of books are sometimes there, so I'll read them. And yeah, that's how my tryst with the temple started. Since then I visited so many temples, like, because I've traveled a lot, and anywhere I go, one of the first things I check is which is some ancient temple. If there's an ancient temple, I'll go there. If ancient temple is not there, then I'll see what other temple I may want to visit. So
That seems like a very interesting journey that you had in your life. So you started with the Gyanlingam temple, and then you have visited many temples, as you mentioned. So if you can, maybe you can go through list of temples that you have visited, or different regions that you have visited so far.
yeah, so maybe I'll go a little geographically so I can remember stuff.
Yeah.
South is what I visited a lot initially, because as I mentioned, Sadhguru's ashram is in Coimbatore. So my travels also took me there earlier. Mysore, I went. Mysore, we have this Chamunda Devi temple, for example, which is on the hilltop, which is considered very powerful. So that's a lovely temple. And that the special thing about that is there is also a route to, you can do a Padiyatra, like there is one climbing route if we want to go. So once I've gone via that route, that's really amazing. Then there is, and that same spot, actually, the reason I spoke Chamundi is because Mysore was where Sadhguru grew up. So once when I first started traveling, Mysore was the one I started traveling initially, and so Sadhguru's enlightenment spot is very close to that Chamundi Devi temple in Mysore. So I used to visit that also. There's a huge Nandi over there. So that's also a very beautiful place. Near that Nandi, there is a cave temple. So it's just so nice, all these things. And just near the Nandi spot, Sadhguru's enlightenment spot is there. So it's just wonderful. Another place I really love is Tiruvannamalai. Tiruvannamalai is Ramana Maharshi's ashram is there. Usually, if you're a little bit older, then definitely you've heard of Ramana Maharshi. I think the younger kids are younger folk, younger mean maybe 30s or something, they might not have heard of him, but anyone older knows Ramana Maharshi, because Ramana Maharshi is such a person who just left everything and stayed at that Tiruvannamalai hill, in Tamil Nadu, and he never left that place, but his name and his that reverence has spread across the world, I would say. It is just amazing. So Ramana Maharshi I've been to, and his ashram is absolutely beautiful. There are a couple of temples in his ashram. The hill is considered great, like Arunachalam hill is there in Tiruvannamalai, and that hill is actually considered a form of Shiva. See, usually hills and temples, even mountains like Kailash is considered abode of Shiva, which is the place where Shiva lives. But Arunachalam is considered a form of Shiva. So a lot of people actually consider that hill as Shiva himself. But even then, on the hill itself, there is Ramana Maharshi's earlier ashram, which is called Skandashramam. That's a beautiful one. It has small temple things, and there is a Virupakshi cave there where Ramana Maharshi stayed earlier. But even before Ramana Maharshi, other yogis have stayed there. There is a nice little cave to meditate. There's a Shivlanga shrine and everything. It is a very powerful place. So that is wonderful. Tiruvannamalai also has the Arunachaleshwara temple, which is the fire temple. So in South India there are five elemental temples. So each temple represents each of the elements. So this Arunachaleshwara is the fire temple. Then there are other four, which is wind, which is in Kalahasti. Then Chidambaram temple, the Nataraj temple in Chidambaram is space. Water is in Trichy. And one is
the Jambukeshwar temple at Trichy.
Yes, Jambukeshwar and Trichy. Earth temple is Ekambareshwara in Kanchipuram. I have been to Kanchipuram also. So one of the first temples I visited in Kanchipuram was this Ekambareshwara temple. And that was actually a very interesting story, because I was staying in one hotel just for one day. I was there. So I just got out of the hotel, and there are temples all across, because Kanchipuram is like Kashi, you would say, because everywhere there are temples, and huge those gopurams in the South Indian style, you see them everywhere. So I was like, which temple to go to? Because even if I read, then a lot of them are very popular. Many powerful temples are there. So I just stood there and I said, let me just go where my heart leads me. Like that I went. So I stepped out and I started walking. One gopuram I saw in the distance, and I went there and I visited beautiful temple. Once I visited, I realized this was the Ekambareshwara temple, the earth temple. So I was very special, and it's very beautiful. Kanchipuram is amazing. Then a couple more are there, which many even Shakti spots like Devi temples are there. The other Vishnu temple is there. It's a very wonderful place. Then I think I am saying a lot about ancient temples. One thing in Tamil Nadu itself I can mention is Pondicherry, because in Pondicherry we have the Aurobindo Ashram. So in Aurobindo Ashram we have a very unique temple which is called Matri Mandir, and it is covered with gold discs and all. And visiting that temple is a kind of a pretty elaborate process, because the first time you visit Auroville, which is actually many kilometers away from Pondicherry town, so you have to take a transport, go to Auroville. And then they don't allow you to visit the temple there and then. You can only go and see the temple from outside. Then you have to take a token, and you have to go back. And then only next time in your second visit, you bring the token and you will get to enter the temple. And that temple is very wonderful. We just happened, like I was there with my mother that time, and she was insistent we should do it. So we ended up doing. Otherwise, I am actually very lazy for all these things. So I may not have ended up visiting, but because of my mother, we ended up going. And it was a very interesting experience, because that temple is very different. Like, it's fully white from inside, and they make you wear socks so that even your foot should not make a sound. So you're wearing socks and you're walking inside, and you can't carry anything. And something they have done with some sun rays falling inside, and some crystal or something is there. And it's a very interesting experience. You literally feel like you're in a spaceship or something. So that is one thing. Then let me go a little north. Maharashtra, I visited this place. I went to one of my first Kumbh Melas in, I think it was in 2015 probably. Because Kumbh Mela was a little bit, I would not generally just go, because I would be like, I'm solo traveling and all. How will I manage in a Kumbh Mela? Such thoughts will come to my mind. But first one I went to was in 2015. I went to the one that happened near Nasik. And there, that amazing, that Trimbakeshwara temple is there, which is, I think it's also a Linga, Jyotirlinga. So it's a wonderful temple. Like, I love that place. And and that time I had gone during Kumbh Mela, so we actually had to stand in line for an hour or 2 hours. But it was a very miraculous thing, because generally I will never stand. I'll never stand in these lines. This whole thing bugs me like anything. So, but for no choice also in Kumbh Mela, so I stood in line, and somehow, where those 2 hours went away, we don't know. Somehow, how it was, I don't know. We are just standing, and it was not even like we had some great love for the people around us, but in those 2 hours, we became like a family. Not even any major incident has happened. Somehow we were just standing, and a few comments passed here and there. In fact, there was even one uncle who we all got bugged at, because he just cut the line and just came in middle and stood with us. He should have stood much behind. But somehow, even with that person, all by the time we reached that door, all anger vanished. We were going like one family. Literally, when I've entered that temple, I have felt like we are one family, we are going inside. And there was no explanation for this, because generally after 2 hours of just standing in line, you would be irritated and bugged. But I cannot explain why we were filled with this feeling. It was really amazing. And I think others also felt the same way, because once we entered, these uncles were looking out for us, not just me, the other people. And even when we exited, because we couldn't sit inside, the Garbhagriha was full. So we just got in, did the namaskar, and we had to get out. So even there, the uncle is just ensuring everybody's coming out, everyone is fine. It was just amazing. I was so stunned, because I generally avoid this kind of stuff, but it was so amazing. And then next day again, I went at 5:30 in the morning. I woke up and I went there, and there were hardly, I had to wait for 15 minutes, because that time not much crowd. So there also, that time I actually got to sit inside, and I was so happy. I was just thrilled, like. So there I got to sit inside. Otherwise, if they throw me out, I just sit outside, because I ensure I sit there for 15-20 minutes. I don't leave without it, because otherwise no use of the visit, I feel. Because see, if you're going to God's presence, you have to sit and you have to absorb it. You cannot just, it's not like we say God is very powerful, but it's not like in 1 second he may do something. You have to make yourself available. And for that, it's best if you sit, you allow all the clutter you bring inside, you just let it dissipate, be there. Maybe at least then for a moment we may have some real contact, I would say, and then we can go. So yeah, amazing. Then that was my first Kumbh Mela. Second Kumbh Mela, I went to this place, Ujjain. I went to Ujjain. I visited Omkareshwara temple. That's the only one I visited. And again, the line and crowds and all was there. But one amazing thing I remember about that line was that somehow I got into a VIP section, and just nearby to me, there's some Naga sadhus were there. And it was amazing, because they had vibhuti covered all over, and they were so intense. Like, they were amazing, because I was just like in some zone I was, and I'm walking around in my own world, and slowly I was walking. But these guys were so intense, like just they passed me by, but I don't know, I felt like it was something quite amazing. That was a nice one. And then of course they got a different access and they went inside. I had to go with the public, so some crowd was there and all. But Omkareshwar, of course, again, these temples, they are just really amazing. Like so then I visited that one, and I couldn't visit too many others. I visited, I think Sandipani's ashram is there, which is Krishna's guru. So that one I visited. That has some temples. Ujjain again is like Kashi, it has so many temples. It even has these Padyatras where the entire city has this whole pilgrimage route with temples across it, 84 temples, so many temples. It's just so great. Kal Bhairava is there in Ujjain. So that one also, but too many lines I couldn't visit because I was there for a couple of days, so then I could visit only a couple of temples, because during Kumbh Mela lines are very long, so 4 hours is a bit tricky. So that one, Ujjain, was also amazing. And Kashi I should probably just talk about here, because that way I can talk about North temples also, because I can just keep going on and on. Actually, I don't even know when. Now you've started like like an unending box. Like, I just remove and there are temple stories on temple stories. I'll take a couple of more and then I'll kind of.
Okay.
One was Kashi. So the thing that happened with Kashi was that I was Isha actually has this amazing bhajan called Kal Bhairav Ashtakam. So I was just in one of those phases, and Sadhguru had told us that you should take one mantra and you should just hear it day in and day out. You let that become your soul, like that he has told us. So I was thinking which mantra, and none of those were. They had some chants, and none of them were fitting me. Then I just put on this bhajan, and I loved it so much that literally there was a time where literally for a month or more than a month, whole day that Kal Bhairav Ashtakam is going on non-stop. Even when I'm sleeping, I put in a headphone and I sleep. So till the moment I'm sleeping, it's going on in loop. When I wake up, it's probably off or something because the battery's out. But it was like I've spent so many days, weeks, I would say, like that with Kal Bhairav Ashtakam on. And that Ashtakam says that that Kal Bhairava is Kashi's Kal Bhairava, no? So it says Kashi. So I was like, then I have to visit Kashi Kal Bhairava. I mean, I can't. So then I went, that's how my Kashi trip happened, because this bhajan was on, and then I said I have to visit him. So I went to Kashi. And but I must say that was a very difficult experience, because these temples, and I am a solo traveler, so I I mean I'm not used to these religious places. There is so much of usually we go to these places as a family, and your parents and all take care of many things, and we are just kind of roaming around and doing the good stuff. Now when I went alone, I have to manage everything. Like the touts are there, they are trying to sell stuff. Then if I have to do any puja stuff, then I have to buy it, and I don't know if I am supposed to bargain, not bargain. Where do I keep my chappals and all such things? And Kashi itself has this whole ambience. I found it very difficult because it was the first religious place that I visited. Otherwise, I was always in these very, I would say, protected environments. Like if I stay in a hotel, I will visit a zoo or something, then it's a very normal process. But visiting Kashi is like one doesn't know how to make decisions. Like all of a sudden, these sadhus will start begging. So what do you do? Because generally to a sadhu, you will offer alms. You will never say no. But now you don't know whether this is a sadhu or if it is a beggar. It's just one example. Then there are people trying to sell stuff. Everything is so crowded. Finding out the time of the aarti, knowing where to enter aarti from, because the temple has multiple gates. Some gate has a long line, some gate has short line. How to find also is just very difficult. But I visited Kal Bhairava finally, and yeah, I don't know that temple. It's very different temple, because Kal Bhairava shrine is in the middle, and all around it there are these black clothed who are kind of like tantric. I think they are pretending to be tantric babas. I don't think all of them must be genuine. They have those black clothes, and they have those things they hit people. Those feather things, peacock feathers or something. They are hitting people.
A broom made of peacock feathers.
Yeah, something like that. And it was a very, very different environment for me. And I just got like, I zoned out. Like, I'm like, what's going on? So I just did one chakkar, and then I came out. And but yeah, that Kashi trip became a very big learning experience for me, because after that I was free to visit any temple space anywhere, and I'll manage, because I've been to Kashi, which is like the most chaotic you could ever be. So Kashi was amazing. Kashi has temples of all sorts. Like I've heard that there are all 7 planet individual temples. Otherwise, we only have the Navgraha shrines, and only Shani Dev has its own temple, his own temple. Usually the other grahas are not having commonly, but then in Kashi, I've heard that is also there. Kashi, I think anything and everything may be there. Like it's an amazing place. One of the rarer temples I visited in Kashi was there is a Nepalese temple, which is there near the Ganga river. That one I visited, and one more I visited was there is a Kashi Krama Yatra that they do. So to do that yatra, you have to visit one temple. I don't know which stage. There are some 8 temples you have to visit during that Kashi Krama Yatra. And one of those temples I visited, which was a very hidden temple. It was amazing, like such a lovely one it was. I don't have any photos or anything, because they didn't allow to click also. And I had gone with one more person who was staying in Kashi, and by the time we had to search a lot all across Kashi, we went, and she had some contacts. That's why asking, we went and found it. But finally we reached there. Some feeling was so very, very nice. It was very nice. Little different. Like you will not, when I'm saying very nice, I don't mean from architecture. Architecture also was very interesting. somehow, you know, when we visit these places, we are full of some feelings, very unusual feelings just enter us, like something very nice was there, like that I was feeling. I think she was also very taken aback because she really wanted to click a photo of the temple, but finally when she reached there, she didn't remember it only, like it was out of the mind, we forgot. So Kashi, if we talk temples, then definitely we have to speak Kashi. Nitesh, you should do a special Kashi series if you've not already done, because
Yeah. Yes, yes.
um, and yeah, then one last one I'll just touch upon are the Himalayan temples, because I've visited Himalayas also a lot. So Himachal specifically I'll talk of, because see, Uttarakhand, I guess most of you all will know of the Char Dham Yatra temples, which are all your Kedarnath, Badri and all. You all already know this. And those are kind of mainstream temples. But Himachal, when I started, I've already been to Char Dham and then I went to Himachal. So I expected similar Shiva temples, Vishnu temples, Devi temples in Himachal, but that's not the case. Himachal is very different in terms of its temple culture. One of the things about Himachal is they have these local deities which are called Devtas. So, Devis and Devtas, and there's a whole culture around them. Like there are these small, every gaon you go to will have its little Devta, like Kamru Devta or some other Devta. I don't remember so many names and all. I think Shringarishi is one. So they have all these little devtas and all, and they have these nice quaint little shrines. And what they do is they have this doli culture. Like, so somehow they must be having some process. All of a sudden that devta will say that through some way the devta will say, I want to go there. So they will take him on that palkin with a doli, and they, with all the, you know, band baja and everything, they will take that procession. Some 8-9 people will walk all the way with the devta to that place. Then from there, something ritual they'll do and they'll come back. These palkis are going on all the time in Himachal. If you're going as traveler, you may not notice as much, but if you know, you will mostly you just look around like this. Somewhere you will see a palki of a devta going. It's like a very bright red colored palki is there, and there will usually be at least 1 or 2 instrument playing people. Couple of people will be carrying it. It'll be like at least some 8 people ka group. It's just something very amazing, and I was really yeah, it was very unusual for me. But I really enjoyed it, and I've been to Himachal a few times since then, and it was very nice to. It's just so lovely, you know. India has its own flavor wherever you go, so it just really liked it. So yeah,
Yeah, so it's really nice to hear about this journey. The thing you said about the devtas in Himachal Pradesh, usually they are called as Gram Devta. Every village or every town, every city has their own god, that or its own temple which has been there for a long time. So these are called Gram Devta. And the procession that you mentioned, carrying them in palki, it's not very specific to Himachal Pradesh. It's prevalent all over the country. In fact, in southern parts as well, in Maharashtra as well. In Maharashtra also, in small villages, they take out these palki yatras of gods. And
but is it that common? Because I know they
yeah,
do
it's
it.
common. Yeah,
Really?
yeah, it's really very common actually. And the reason for behind these palki yatras or ratha yatras, many times they are carried in rathas, like we mostly know about
Yeah.
Jagannath Rath Yatra. But Rath Yatra happens in all the villages or all the towns. Those temples that have a lot of money, they prefer creating a rath. And those temples that don't have much money, or the villages that are poor, they will just create a small palki using bamboo woods, and they will carry the god in that palki. Actually, talking about the reasons behind these palki yatras, they actually started, I think, around in 11th or 12th century, when untouchability concept had just started up. And then, yeah, and then there were some reformers like Ramanujacharya in southern India, or Naneshwar and Tukaram in Maharashtra, or there were many others. Those who insisted that God should be available to everyone. So just to avoid conflicts, they started this process of carrying God outside the temple using a palki or a yatra, so that those who cannot visit the temple, they can at least see or experience God when the God is passing on the road. Yeah, so this was the whole concept behind those Rath Yatras and Palki Yatras.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not 100%. So I think we keep having this because you look at the very logical and a very, I don't know whether to, how to say it, but I'm not
Okay.
100% sure this is the only reason because, see, I'll give you an example. Like in Isha Yoga Center, now there is a Devi temple. So what they do is every new moon, they take out the yatra, like the Devi will come out and they will go to Dhyanalingam temple. There will be some aarti and stuff. It's an amazing event, okay, because they do fire
Okay.
dancing and they do some singing, and it's just very nice. And then Devi goes back to Devi temple. There is, so now this reason is not needed, right? Untouchability is not at all a issue here because anybody can visit Devi temple. So
Actually, untouchability was the reason when it all started. But as untouchability was over, or as people started to visit temples, all people were allowed to visit temples. But still, somehow the rituals stayed back. There are many such rituals that are out of time. They are not very relevant in today's time. But people are very
yeah, but I
what
wouldn't
we
say
can
it's
say.
not relevant. It is so fun. It is so
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, it's fun. But the basic reason behind starting is not relevant now. The reason why these process rituals were started, that's not relevant now. But even then, some rituals stayed back. People still follow the rituals.
I
So yeah,
think
that's the thing.
also there has always been an attempt in Indian culture to, mm, the whole society should be in a celebratory mode, and there is always a god.
Yeah,
Maybe some other way, if they are able to take a procession, there is music and everything, it brings everybody in a festive environment, then they will do it. I feel that is also one of the things because there's always these celebratory things going on. So when the palki passes, every village on the way will do something. So
right, right, right.
it just gets that social thing going on. But I understand what you're saying, that it may have started for a specific reason. Maybe I.
Anyways, having listening to your experience about temples, the places that you have visited, I realized one part. While I am very much interested in the archaeological part or the historical part of the temple, or I prefer to look at sculptures rather than the deity itself. I realize that you are very much into the energy of the temple. You, wherever you go, whichever
Yeah.
temple you visit, you want to experience, you want to feel that energy or the aura of the temple. Like we say, every person has an aura around himself. So similarly, every temple has an its own aura, and it largely depends on the people that are visiting there, or the uh, I don't know. There are many different concepts about how to define an aura of the
Yeah,
temple.
it's what I was thinking because the moment we talk energy, we go into the hula hula space. I mean, there is no
Yeah,
clarity, and then
there is no clarity at all.
especially in this hippie and yoga culture, there are always these people making very random claims.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So, anyways, you experience you enjoy experiencing the energy of the temple. You like the energy of the temple,
yeah.
and also you mentioned that you prefer to go alone on the tours. You prefer to go solo rather than going with other group or other people.
Hmm.
So, why do you prefer going solo? That was one prime reason one prime question I had very often.
See, initially, I think it just started out as curiosity and exploration because, when I was younger, especially when I want to travel, I don't know whether friends are available or free. And if they are free, they want to go to a specific place, but I have some own thoughts of my own. Uh, Family and all, so I don't want to carry all the time, right? At some point, you want to get out and do your own thing also. You have to get out from that whole uh, structure. So I think solo just made sense. I mean, it was, it just, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I realized the more and more with people is that they want to know what they're doing. I'm like, but I don't know. I'm just going somewhere. I don't have any plan of action in mind. And it's just easier with other people. I would have to keep coming up with reasons and keep explaining and keep logically, which I don't want to. Like I said, when I went to Kanchipuram, I don't want to plan which temple I want to go to. I just want to stand there and see where my heart takes me, and it takes me to interesting places sometimes. I do that quite often, like I actually had this pseudo ritual of sorts where every few days I need to do this, that I just go out and I just explore something I've not explored before. Like even
Okay.
if it is in the city, I'm already like in Bombay, I was staying for many years. I used to do that. I would go to one place and say, which is the road I've never taken before. So that's the one I'll take and I'll walk. And it was so
Interesting.
interesting. It would once I found something which had a board called Giant Bank. I'm like, what is a Giant Bank? I didn't know what is that. So then I took photos and I sent it to my family. I'm like, what is this? Then I found one sanatorium where they are giving free stay to cancer patients. Very nice looking one. So it was so nice for me to know such a thing was happening in heart of Bombay. So that's why I think I just took one thing that however did support me was that when I was in Isha Yoga Center, which was right after my degree college, I met a lot of foreign women who were traveling solo a lot. All
Okay.
across the world they had traveled solo, and that was for me, thus I was very clear it can be done. I think otherwise at that time, especially this, we are talking about like 2008 and 2009. That time it was not that common in Indian circles. So for a lot of Indian girls, they will not even think it may be safe. But because all of my these friends from the ashram had already done, and I was thinking they are foreigners, they don't even know the local language or the local stuff. Still, they are traveling alone. So definitely it is possible, and that is why I just went then. Yeah.
So it all started as a coincidence. You coincidentally started to travel solo at the first.
Yeah, I mean, not
Uh,
coincident, but we can say out of curiosity. No
Out of
major
curiosity.
plan, no nothing, just curiosity. I of course planned a few where I would stay at night and all, but
Okay.
just a random, yeah.
Okay. So now, if given a chance, would you prefer to go solo again, or would you
Solo
prefer to
for
go?
sure, always solo. So since then I
Okay.
never stopped, right? Dinesh, you know it, but the viewers don't know. I
Yeah.
never stopped traveling solo. I loved it. I once see what happened is the first few trips I was still exploratory zone, but once I started traveling solo, I realized so much advantage of it because all of a sudden my mind was free to just think what I want with no strings attached of anyone else. I think what people don't realize is constantly when you're with someone, your own thoughts are not developing. You yourself don't know a lot of times what exactly you want to do. You're always full of, oh, you want to do this, then, and what is also happening with us is we are trying to be people who we feel the others will like. Even if
Yeah.
even if they are good friends and all, you still want to be accepted by them, and your thoughts are going in an accepted format. They will only move in that little circle around those friends. They will not go in a completely different direction. But when you're alone, you have no framework. You are literally free to just say, like I'm saying, you stand on a crossroad and you are absolutely free to take any road you like.
Okay.
And that's what I experienced, and I never want to stop experiencing that. I love solo traveling. I don't think I'll ever stop. So now that I have such a brash character, like if people say that they want to come with me, I'm like, no, this is my solo trip. I refuse to take anyone. And then some of the people are requesting me that plan something for us because we see you doing all these very interesting traveling. We also want to do, but we will not do alone. So then one time I planned something like I took the four of us, like four women in the family, including me. We went to Spiti in one of the 2017 or something like that. And they enjoyed it so much. For me, it was a normal trip. For them, it was something out of the world. Like especially just women, all the men were left behind and all. It was amazing for them. So they were saying to do again, but I was like, see, I have to do my solo trip. On top of that, I have to do this trip. So it is a little difficult for me to manage.
Yeah, I have experienced that part when I had asked, "May I join you for some trip?" and you had said bluntly said no. I remember that part. Yeah. So Priyanka, I think you are one girl who experiences everything before it becomes cool. You were on Twitter before Twitter became cool. You used to travel solo before traveling solo became
Yeah, then
cool.
it became cool.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, today traveling solo is like a cool thing that to flaunt or to
Yeah.
express social media. So there is another thing that you experienced before it became cool. Cycling has become a cool thing after, especially after COVID lockdowns. But you had been to some cycling explorations even before that.
Yeah.
So
So
definitely the viewers would like to know more about those cycling explorations that you had.
So cycling was also an extension of my solo traveling. So the way I'm saying that I love traveling solo. So when I traveled solo for many years, and one thing I was noticing is even if I'm traveling solo and I am not concerned with other people are thinking I'm totally free to explore the way I want to, I still have to ensure I have a good hotel booked at night. I have to ensure everything is safe. I have to ensure that the timings are maintained and all the safety precautions have been taken. Because also until then, I had only traveled in India. So in 2015, I got the chance to go international. I had basically the money and in interest also. I had taken a break from work, so I had a long gap which I could go on a longer trip. So I said, this is the chance we can do an international trip. So this was my first solo international trip. So I decided to go to Europe because Europe in our minds is one of the safest places. And the other big thing about Europe was that we had the Schengen visa, which means I could travel across those 15 countries or whatever without any other visa. One visa, I could travel anywhere I like. So I was like, this is the time I can break these boundaries also. Like, I don't need a hotel to stay. Let me not have all these structure also. Let's remove everything. So then I was wondering how to do about it. One way is to do hiking. If you go hiking, you are out, you just leave everything behind and you go. But the hiking, the problem is generally for safety reason, they don't tell you to go alone. They say you should be in group. And especially for my first few hikes, it's just not advised at all. So I removed hiking, and also my concern was how do I carry that big backpack and all. I didn't know how to do it. So I said, forget it. So then when I was exploring how to explore Europe, I came across this really cool thing called cycle touring. So in India, the concept is very new, but in Europe, it is a very common thing, especially the Germans and a few of these countries like Spain, Spanish people and all, they do a lot of cycle touring. Like, it's actually common, like at least, these like young people would have at least gone on one trip, either with others or alone or whatever. So cycle touring really caught my interest because cycling, while I was not at that time cycling, but I in general love cycling because, as kids, we all have cycled and we love cycling. So I just took to it. I said, this is very beautiful. Now, how do I do it? So then I found only one person I knew in Mumbai who had done cycle touring. So I ate his brain basically. And that guy even complained about the amount of questions and amount of information I took from him. So
Are you talking of Mehul by any chance?
no, Kunal Mitra.
Okay.
Kunal, you may know, he came for some bar camps and he talks about cycle touring in bar camps only. But
I remember the name, but I don't really remember the face actually. Maybe I did not interact with him a lot.
He I had actually heard one of his talks, but that time I never took it seriously because I'm like, acha, some people are doing something. But then I finally, when I saw those pictures of cycle touring on the Europe website, and I'm like, I have to do this. Then that struck me. Kunal Mittal is the one who's done this. He was talking about it in bar camp. Straight away, I contacted him, and he was more than happy to give all information because obviously he's happy somebody is doing cycle touring. So that's how then my first trip to Germany happened, and that was the plan, Dinesh. Like, I had to, of course, have my gear and everything in place. So I have to still plan the trip. But once I left Berlin, like I stayed for 12 days in Berlin and I bought all my gear there itself because I didn't even have a cycle here. So everything, cycle bags, all the gear I bought over there, camping gear I bought. And the amazing thing in Germany is that these people who are manning the stores, like the person from whom I bought my tent, they all have camped themselves. They have all cycle toured themselves. So they were able to give me very, very minute instructions because they've done it themselves. So they were just able to explain me everything. Decathlon stores in India, for that matter, are kind of using the same model because the salespeople in Decathlon have some experience of actual sports. So it's a very interesting model, which earlier in India never happened because in India, if you go to a sports shop, that uncle behind the counter has no clue of any sports at all. So he cannot even guide you with which equipment to buy because you need to play to know, right? So in that sense, Berlin was amazing. These guys knew so much. So I got additional information from them, local information. My route got set, and then that's it. I just left Berlin. And it was the most amazing experience. The first day I was on my cycle with my tent, it is, I have to say, an indescribable because that day theoretically, I could stay anywhere I like. I could do whatever I want. There was no hotel book. There was the whole structure was removed. So that was absolutely amazing. But of course, realistically, I did have like these campsites, which I knew that this is a near campsite. So probably I will reach there and I'll put my tent over there. But even the first 2-3 times it was planned. After that, I realized that every 15-20 kilometer one camping site was there. So I'm like, I don't care. If I feel tired, I will camp there. Otherwise, I will cycle further. Who cares? Like, and then after 7-8 days, I was more and more bold I was getting. So I entered Denmark. Like after cycling for some 7-8 days, I entered Denmark. And Denmark, I started cycling because I had taken a ferry from Germany to Denmark. And I got down in Denmark at some 7 in the evening. At the time at 7 in the evening, already it was dark and clouds were there. So it was going to rain later on. I was like, nothing doing. I'm still cycling. So I went cycling at night. I was cycling till 9:30. I cycled. And by the time the wind was so much, it was almost very stormy condition. I was still like, no care, no care, no concern in my brain. I'm just going. And then finally one very dark field was there. So I somehow felt this was a campsite. So I just went there, and it turned out to be a campsite only, but it was completely empty because Europe is anyway empty. Even if you go in the city, a lot of places it's empty. If you go countryside, nobody's there in the countryside. So this campsite was there. There were some rooms also. Usually the campsites have some hotel rooms to stay in, and they have the field where you can put your tent. So the room one family was staying. So that girl helped me tell me this is a campsite and all. You'll find the bathroom over there. So then I went in the field. Not a single other camper was there. So literally on that field at dark at night, I have alone pitched my tent. I used the washroom and everything, came back, chill, no care. Literally, if any normal like Indian girl is put in that situation, they'll be freaked out. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So I'm like, now that's the moment I realized, that now all this is it. Like if you like that kind of stuff, then I don't think it's worth to try and push yourself in socially acceptable stuff anymore. Then it's better for me to explore that. And then that's all. From that on, I've kept exploring more and more. I went to many other countries since then. Australia I went, Taiwan I went, Thailand I went. Some places I was camping, some places I only cycle and I stay in a hotel on the road, whatever I find. It's so nice, it's so amazing for an Indian girl, especially from my years, because when I was small, you would realize we didn't imagine such things. Because especially for a girl, you have to get married and all the social structures were there. Even the safety of society was not at the level where I would imagine such a thing. But I'm just so happy that the world changed by the time we grew up.
Yeah, it's actually a good thing that the world changed.
So that's all. And this whole thing ties very well with my whole spiritual quest, because this allowed me to be with nature. This allowed me to be completely on my own, if we say conquering fears, which I didn't have much of, as I realized. But whatever little also I had, I was there alone. I was dealing with them. Very, very big learnings. And it allowed, when I started traveling abroad also, I explored many things. Like in Australia, for example, I stayed in a Buddhist retreat. I was camping over there, but the Buddhist retreat was there, and I was meeting all these Buddhist people, Australian people who had taken to Buddhism, seeing that culture. They were building one stupa over there, one big stupa. So I was just seeing their efforts, how much they are making efforts, discussing Buddhism with them. Taiwan, I saw their Buddhist culture. Taiwan is amazing, like a very, very amazing place. So they have that Buddhism, Tao Buddhism, a lot of Indian stuff is also there, because Buddhism and that stuff came from India, initially. So a lot of cultural similarities, very, very nice. And Thailand also was a major surprise, because Thailand has so many ashrams. Like they don't use the word ashram, they call it asom in their language, but Buddhist culture is so strong, and all the Buddhist, so these ashrams are connected to an actual Buddhist temple and a Buddhist monastery. So it's a combined unit, and all these ashrams will do their Vipassana kind of meditation techniques. But I just never imagined, like when I'm cycling in Thailand on all these offbeat roads, every 10-15 kilometers, there is one ashram. Huge ashram, like it has a Buddhist temple, nice big ornate Buddhist temple, huge place, like you can't miss it. That's why I knew, because see, the signs were not in English. But the moment you see that place with that Buddhist temple, you know this is a something, it's a spiritual religious institution. And then you kind of search on map or you talk to someone, if they know English, they tell you, and you realize it's ashram. And it's a amazing, such a thriving culture. Then I met some monks and all, and I was chit-chatting like in Pattaya when I reached in my cycling journey. Then I stayed in one Vipassana retreat. So I met this monk who was Australian, so he could speak English. One of the things is they don't speak English, these Thai people, so it's difficult to talk. But I met a lot of monks. This monk, then one more lady monk was there. One other lady, very traditional woman monk I met earlier on in the journey, and so much I understood of the Buddhist culture that time. Theravada Buddhism they follow, so that Theravada Buddhism stuff and women conditions and so many things. And of course, I learned that Vipassana technique also. So it's just very amazing. And then, yeah, just one more thing I want to say is that after doing all of this cycling, I did not, I couldn't accept that I can't do this in India, because I love India. I love traveling in India, and I love cycling, and I cannot cycle tour in India. No way, it's not happening. So I finally cycle tour in India also. I came to Chennai from Taiwan. When I came back, I dropped in Chennai and I said, I'm going to cycle. So outside Chennai airport, I fixed my cycle. I removed it from the box. I fixed it up and I cycled out of Chennai airport on my cycle. That's how the Western people travel. You know, Indian people can't imagine it, but I'm like, no ways. That's what I'm going to do. So that's what I did. And then from Chennai, I cycled all the way to Kanchipuram. That's where my Kanchipuram visit happened. Then Kanchipuram to Tiruvannamalai was also one. Though there were only 2 rides I did, and I ended in Tiruvannamalai. So Tiruvannamalai was my first visit to Ramana Ashram, and so nice. It's just so nice. It became so spiritual. It's just so powerful journey. It's just like it's just one of those things. So,
It's actually really wonderful, Priyanka, how you find spirituality even in smallest things. If we imagine we would go to temple and find spirituality there, but you find spirituality in nature, you find spirituality in your journeys, you find spirituality even in your cycling trips. So that's really interesting. Also, getting back to spirituality, apart from visiting those temples, what are the other sources that you refer when you want to seek information about spirituality or to understand the part?
See, one of the things is apart from temples, one of the things about temples also is that there are a lot of ashrams and samadhis and all associated with temples. So that is also one thing I search for. Like one is if there are ancient temples, then I always prefer those. Otherwise, we get recommendations. Like if I listen to Sadhguru or if I listen to my spiritual seekers, a lot of them, they will tell these places are very powerful, or this one spoke of this place, or this is very so that's how we come to know of a lot of places. Apart from places, the main thing about spirituality when we talk about experiencing is we have to practice something, because it is an internal experience. So I think main crux for me becomes my yoga practices which are happening, which are my Isha yoga practices, which I've been doing from those days of graduation where I met Sadhguru and learned from him. So those are my core practices, and that's the main thing. So so one of the main things is doing our daily practices, and it has to be a daily process. That's what I put most value on. And whatever it may be, you know, even if it's some small like puja or aarti or those things, but as long as we are able to find deeper meaning, and I think that's the main thing. So my yoga practices are the main thing. They are the crux of everything. In fact, the first few years of traveling, I didn't formally do spiritual stuff. I just traveled and was with myself. I had a lot of solitude and silence and all those things, but I didn't actually read or explore too much on that stuff, because it's very important. I don't know how to explain it, but because spirituality is after all an internal process, right? So that internal something has to happen with you. So for that to happen, you need to have some practice or process taking place. So that is a very, very important thing. Now after, because I've been doing these practices for so many years, I do read books, but that also very exclusively, because see, you don't want to stuff yourself with knowledge, because then it will become a barrier. You have to use knowledge as a tool, and you have to consciously see that if this is helping you understand things a little bit better, then it is useful. But if you're simply filled with stuff which you don't really understand, you're just filled with some knowledge, information, more like information, that's not useful. So we have to do these things. So I'm very particular about it. So one is daily practices are the basic. Without it, nothing happens like that for me. The other thing is, yeah, all my explorations, and more than the places I'm exploring, it's the fact that I'm alone. It's a very big game changer actually, because your solitude, your habits start breaking, you start developing so many things, you start understanding yourself little by little, you understand what's important for you, what's not important for you, what is meaningful for you, etc., etc. And then I have started a kind of, my entire lifestyle is shaped such towards everything I find meaningful, like this whole, for example, this conversation, my own spiritual channel that got built, all of it started happening because I said, let me not spend time over whatever is socially acceptable and what is kind of like social norm for me to do. Let me think, what do I really care about? Let me spend time on it, even if it is simply writing one blog post. Because at least in that time of writing the blog post, I'm spending time thinking about something I actually care about. I'm thinking more about it, going deeper about it, doing some research about it, and then I'm publishing it out so that someone else may find it. I may have some conversations around it. So it really builds it. So my whole life I've started shaping such that everything is things that I genuinely care about, little things. So in that sense, just take this plant and all. Like when I started, I said, let me get some plants and all. It'll be good to do some gardening at home. So the plants I chose were these Ayurvedic herbal types. I mean, nothing wrong with other plants. It's just these were so interesting for me. So then I learned more about their characteristics. This particular one is called Gotu Kola, which I can actually pluck the leaves and eat every morning. It is recommended. So in that way, every little plant I have, I know so much about it. I'm not randomly buying a plant and just keeping it and then not even knowing its name, for example. So I feel everything in life becomes you pay attention to everything. That's where spirituality happens, because every part aspect of your life becomes, like they say, it blossoms like a flower, because every little thing you're doing it thoughtfully, you're doing it with caring, with attention. That's what they call mindfulness also, no, in the Buddhist thing, that every little thing you are paying it adequate attention. You're doing it in a sensible manner. And yeah, so I think that's the main thing. And then whatever tools we use for it, but that should be the outcome, I would say.
Very interesting, very interesting. You also mentioned about the YouTube channel that you have started. For our friends who are watching this video, Priyanka has a very wonderful channel called In Spirituality. It's entirely dedicated to various discussions on spirituality and her experiences as well. So Priyanka, I would like to know, how did this channel help you? Of course, you are sharing what you know, you are sharing your thoughts, you are sharing your knowledge. But did it also help you learn new things?
Yeah, definitely. So that's what, as I was mentioning, with even a blog or a YouTube. See, the thing is, as such, creating content is supposed to be something like time pass, or unless now, of course, people are earning money off it, but then that's like a money making thing. But I don't think people realize that just the simple process of creating content around something you actually care about, which I think Dinesh here also realizes, because we were discussing separately that we care about all this content we are creating, and these topics are so interesting and relevant for us that it's a very nice thing. Like, I'll just give you one example. See, I've been doing yoga practices since 2005. Even before that, I was doing the Swami Ramdev. So 2004, 2003, I was doing yoga practices. But just for this YouTube channel I interviewed one doctor who is a allopathy doctor, but he was talking about his love for traditional medicines, Ayurveda, Siddha and stuff. So in that conversation, we just started discussing so many things about alternative medicine. That video is there on my channel. But one key finding for me was that until that moment, that conversation, I didn't realize yoga as part of traditional medicine. I never realized it. I just thought of yoga as physical exercise, but a better form, a more subtler form. And I thought of it as meditation, but not yoga, nor meditation did I think of it as actually a medicine, like a medical path. But in his channel, I realized, while talking to him, I realized that Ayush is Ayurveda and yoga. The Y in Ayush stands for yoga. And all of a sudden, a bulb clicked in my head, and I said, I have never looked at it like this. So what I started doing after that is I started paying some attention to it. And every time I have some kind of illness, the first thing I do is I sit down and I just, like I just, I don't know how to call it, but just I become very meditative and I focus on that region. So it's not really what I do. It's just that I'm first trying to heal it by yoga. So first I become meditative and I just think about it and I think like, okay, if this is the problem, what could I do? Something like that. And then there are a lot of yoga practices like Anulom Vilom is there, which is the balancing of breath. Just breath watching is there, which I've been initiated in all of these practices, so I can do it. And they are so healing. And surprisingly, when I started doing this in a very thoughtful manner, it was really helping me. I never thought that if I get headache, I should first think of doing some kind of calming yoga, breathing exercises so the headache will go away. But because of this thought channel, this conversation, I thought about it and it changed my view totally. It was such a small thing, but it's so like a spark, which, so, that's the thing. And my whole reason for starting this channel was because through all of these years, I've been exploring and I've been doing my own spiritual explorations. I've been doing internal, out, external. I've realized that one needs Santa Sangati. And in traditional texts and traditional bhajans, they keep talking Santa Sangati, and I kept rejecting it. I'm like, what Santa Sangati? I am here on my own. Solitude is so important, but it is true. For me, for a certain time, solitude was extremely important, but then I needed Santa Sangati and I didn't have it. Because see, I don't belong to a specific path, and even if you're in one path, you may not necessarily find everyone who you are gelling with. And then I started blogging and I started finding few scattered people who I was having a sync with. And then I said, that's where the whole thing of a YouTube channel started, because I said, one is that I want to be more in contact with them. I want to be having these conversations. I want to listen from them. They will give me inspiration. It is like a very synergetic process. And the second thing is that after all of these years, I have my Santa Sangati, while so many people will not have it. So let me put it for them also, so they can also understand that so many people are doing so many amazing things in their own way. They are so intense and having spirituality blossom in their life through so many different ways. So that's the thing. I think that's why it's great. Content creation can be a great way for us to go deeper into a topic, to add meaning to our life if we choose the topic accordingly and if we go about it in a very meaningful manner. Dinesh, you also would agree, I think. Tell us your also experiences.
For me as well, this YouTube channel has helped in a big way. The Indian Temples channel that I started. Initially, I had started it as an extension to my Instagram handle. But then later on, as I started to interact with more people, started to interview more people, I realized that I know very little about these temples. I only know about the archaeology part, or the what we can say, the sculpture part of those temples. But apart from that, there are a lot of things, right? Like even in today's interview, I have realized one new thing, that when I go to visit a temple, I mostly focus on the sculptures or the deity or the archaeology or the history of the temple. But I had very rarely I have tried to interact with the energy of that temple. Very rarely I have tried to experience that energy. Very rarely I have even sat down there for 15-20 minutes to find out the energy that is flowing in that temple. So even today, this has been a very new experience for me. And yeah, so for me as well, just like you mentioned, the YouTube has helped in a big way to realize myself, to understand myself better, and to understand my own journey in a very refined way. So this has been a very great conversation, Priyanka, with you.
Thank you, Dinesh.
Yeah.
It's really, I'm having a good time sharing also.
Yeah.
It's actually, when you brought it up, I didn't realize, because when I think of my travels, I think of so many things. I didn't realize that temples were so core, which they are. Because when I started sharing, I just realized there is no end to temple stories. There's just one.
I think we have covered most of the points that I had on my mind. If I may have skipped something, or I may have forgot something, you may just add up.
No, nothing major. Just saying, like, yeah, I think our temples are really amazing. Like, they are a great addition to society, and people should see how best we can make use of them, because it is, after all, something that's given to us for a purpose. It's, so we should make use of them in a very meaningful way, whatever it may be. If it is going through the usual rituals, that's fine. If it's doing something a little bit different, that's fine. We could also try to look after our temples, because my love for temples started when I was volunteering in Dhyanalingam. So I was actually part of the maintenance person. So that's another avenue to look at. I think none of us think about maintaining that temple, but that's something to look at also. So yeah, I just hope every one of y'all cares about the temples, and also ensures that it serves a very positive way to the society.
Priyanka, I feel I would be speaking on behalf of all the viewers of this video when I say that we are really looking forward to your book that you are writing. Listening to your experiences, I have realized that there will be a lot of content to be understood from that book. So I hope the book also comes out very soon.
Thank you, Dinesh. I hope so also.
I'm really looking forward to that book.
Yeah.
So friends, this was Priyanka Dalal with us today. She is a YouTuber with a channel dedicated to spirituality. She is a solo traveler. She also prefers to ride on bicycle in different countries. She has done a Europe trip or Thailand, Taiwan, Australia. She has explored all these places on her cycle. And she has been also covered by many English, Hindi, and Gujarati publications. Friends, this was Priyanka Dalal with us. Thank you very much, Priyanka, for joining us today.
Thank you, Dinesh. I had a great time speaking here. Thanks, Dinesh.
Yeah.
Bye.